Thank you for that introduction, and thank you everybody for having me here to talk and for coming to listen. It's great. I want to talk about data or data, depending on whether you have potatoes or potatoes. Data everywhere and not a drop to drink. So I'm going to focus on the data everywhere. And I'm really sorry, I understand that there's not a drop to drink at these events, but I was told that that was sort of on the horizon for maybe other occasions, so I hope that does happen. So let me talk about data everywhere, and I do stats, and so my focus is on statistical modelling and data analysis, and I'm in the School of Mathematical Sciences here, and we just have now in our world so much data. We have so much data really that it's just everywhere we look, and it always has been this way, but it's now just so much more accessible. So there's so much data that we're running out of words to describe it. We've got enough data last year to fill 300 billion iPads, 10 Great Walls of China. So that's in the Great Wall of China, there's 4,000 million bricks. So you multiply that by 10, that's how many bricks of information we've got. In 5 years, we're just going to have 10 times that kind of data. And so it's just everywhere around us. And the question is, what do we do with it? And importantly, how does it affect our lives? So every minute of every day, you know these figures, we send many email messages, YouTube videos, we spend money on e-commerce. So there's a bunch of data that's being transmitted in terms of electronic information, and a lot of money that's tied up in that data. There's more sensor devices. When we walk around, there are sensor devices that are picking us up as data points. There's more Internet of Things in our houses, in our cars, in our offices, in our buildings. Here at QUT, everybody who's walking around is a piece of data in terms of how the university is working, how students are operating around the university, how they're utilising facilities, how we are moving through our workplace. Big data's everywhere at QUT. In a recent examination or question invitation about people working with big data across the university, we saw big data in almost every area of the university. So it's affecting all of us, and it's affecting you because you are the people, the professionals, that are dealing with a lot of that information as well. So it's in everybody's area. So we are watching you. For every person in this room, I collected some information as from the registration list, and this is what I found. That on average, for every 5 people in the room, so that's probably a little more than it's around the table, but say around the table, you earn at least, more than $4,000 a week. You move house at least once in the next 5 years. You'll live for another 160 years. You'll buy 2,500 coffees this year, and you'll own 12 television sets, and interestingly, 85 pairs of shoes. So there's a lot of information that we can learn from people, even from the registration lists for conference dinner or lunches. So let's face it, you are a datum. And that's my job, to use the data that we all produce. So you are a datum, and you go, oh, I'm just a datum, you know, I'm just a datum. But what we want to do is embrace that. We want to take it from, ask not what you can do for data, but what data can do for you. Okay, so the question is, what can data do for us? So this is our challenge then. This is the big data underground. There's lots of different types of data, lots of different ways that we can look at it. It's like the London Underground. You know, how do you actually negotiate this? And what we're doing then in maths and stats is to try to use that information in a way then that we can make predictions, understand, like break open that data and tell the stories that's inside it. And we do that then through our mathematical and statistical models. And so we have in math mathematical sciences here at QUT in the school. We have people in maths, stats, and machine learning, operations research, doing exactly that. And we also have a centre of excellence, which is across 6 different universities in Australia, with about 50 chief investigators. It's a horizon of 7 years, and we're looking to work with big data, big models, and new insights across 3 areas: healthy people, sustainable environments, and prosperous societies. So what I'd like to do is to tell you a couple of stories about the work that we're doing in that area that I'm involved in right now. So the first one is about healthy people. And we can look at the health of our population as an overall or an aggregate level, but we can also look at the health of a population in terms of individuals. And so what we mean by that is we want to take the population level information that we have, and we want to be able to bring it down to the datum, to the what about me question. And so that involves then personalised health in the areas of taking into account, for example, your health knowledge, your lifestyle, your family background, the monitoring of your health through different health sensors. For example, who here has a Fitbit? Okay, so many people are already monitoring, not only that, through other items as well. Who here's got some apps on their phones for health? From people? Yeah. So there's lots of information that we are taking charge of, the kind of data that we can use to improve our own health. Okay, and then we can use that in an aggregate sense to improve the health of everyone by sharing that information and learning from it. And we can also include in that genetic information as well, and information from healthcare teams. So one way that I'd like to start this is to think about personalised diagnostics. So a diagnostic test, for example, you know when you go to the doctor and you have a diagnostic test. So for example, this is an example of cancer. It's something that's close to my heart. I survived about 6 years from breast cancer. So yes to all the survivors. And we're holding hands with all the people who are going through that right now. So the question then, the diagnostic, from the perspective of the test, and these tests can be very good. So they can be looking at if the person has cancer, what's the chance that the test is positive? So they'll take people with cancer and they'll test to see if they have cancer from this test, and it'll come up, yep, 95% of the time they'll get it right. Okay, so a good diagnostic test. But the problem is, if you have that test, so Michael here has gone in for this test, okay, and the doctor then says, Michael, I'm sorry to tell you, but the test has come back positive. So Michael doesn't want to know about given that the person has cancer, what's the chance the test is positive? What he wants to know is, given that the test is positive, what's the chance that he has cancer? Can you see how the question is reversed? And in fact, the information that we use to look at that reverse question involves not only the diagnostic test, but also the background chance of having cancer, having that form of cancer. Now, if it's a very rare cancer, even if the test is, for example, 95% sensitive in terms of being a good diagnostic test, Michael may really only have about a 2% chance of having cancer if that test comes back positive. Okay, based on his age and also the type of the rarity of the cancer. Which means then that this is the debate that's held about, for example, population screening for prostate cancer or breast cancer. So these kinds of questions are questions that we need to answer through statistics. These are probability questions that affect us all. Predictive analytics is another type of personal health question. So we might ask, for example, what's the chance of 5-year survival from breast cancer, given a whole lot of different variables that are important in that. And here's one way that we can look at this, and this is called a classification tree or a decision tree. And so through our statistical models, we can look at which variables are most important in being able to predict 5-year survival from cancer. So we might start with everyone, and then we can split that on the basis of age, And then if you're younger than 50, the split will be on the basis of the stage of the cancer. And then given that, you can work out what the probability of survival will be, 5-year survival. And so a medico or a person can go through and work out through the decision tree what's the chance of 5-year survival for this particular group of people. Now, we can also look at health cohorts. So based on different indices of health, where do you sit in terms of these subgroups of people? So we can think of this not only in health, but these kinds of techniques can be used in many areas. For our students, where do our students lie in terms of groups, cohort groups? Who's going to get through their courses in a reasonable frame, in a reasonable time frame, and in a reasonable mental frame? So, and who needs special care? Who needs to be looked? And it's a proactive approach rather than just a reactive approach. It's too late once they've reached the point of dropping out. We want to know before that. One of the big questions that we're looking at the moment is the question of cancer mapping. And across Queensland, and now, right now, we've got a project to extend this to across Australia. So we're interested in questions here like place. Does place matter where you live? Does that matter for cancer incidence and cancer survival? So is there a difference if you live in the bush compared to if you live in the city? And so what we do in our statistical modelling is we take the information about cancer incidences and cancer survival, and we build these predictive models, and we can then map those to the different areas across the state. And we can come up then with a relative risk for different cancers for different years and also for different locations. We can do this then, as I said, across Australia now, and this will be a digital atlas that will allow people to go to their location and see the types of cancer rates and survival rates in their own areas. And this will be, for many people across Australia, the first time that they've had access to this kind of information. And then we can ask the questions, once we have these maps, what is the difference, in what differences are there in where you live? For the Queensland Atlas, this has made changes, real changes. So part of what we want to do in our statistical modelling is it's great in the development of the theory, it's great in the development of the models, it's great in the computational methods that we use, and we develop all of that. But what's also really important is the so what. What does it mean if we apply this to the real world? And so we have now this Atlas of Cancer for Queensland, and that has generated media attention because we have been able to show that there really are differences in survival rates between people in the country and in the city. And that has meant then a redistribution of health resources in Queensland. Now, not enough, but it's a start. And it's the generation of this evidence base that can help decision makers to manage health resources across the state. What we've found also is that there's a tendency for women also to have different management of their cancer as well, so make different decisions about cancer management. For example, we've shown through the collaboration with Cancer Council Queensland data that women in the bush will tend to have mastectomies more than women in the city, who would tend to have radiotherapy and chemotherapy. And now we suspect that's because women in the country have to travel for the treatment, leave family, leave work, and all the rest of it. We don't really know because we've only got them as a datum at the moment. So what we're trying to do then is to link their stories, their cancer stories as well. And so one of the projects that I have in mind, but we haven't yet started, is to have a geotagging of people's stories. So imagine now we have the map of Australia, the Atlas of Australia, and people with their cancer stories can link them, geotag them to the Atlas. And through those stories then, perhaps there'll be a lot of noise, but perhaps we'll find a signal about why people are making these kinds of decisions about their cancer pathways. The second project that I'd like to tell you about, or two projects, is about the sustainable environments area of our Centre of Excellence. And this is in two problems here, two projects. One is the Great Barrier Reef and one is hunting jaguars. So the first one is the Great Barrier Reef. And this is a project, again, where we're building a digital atlas of the reef, and we're going to use citizen science to help us to monitor the reef. Now, why do we want to do that? Well, we have about 20 years of monitoring of the Great Barrier Reef. But monitoring of the reef is like monitoring a country like the size of Italy. And we've only got a small people resource to do that. So there's only a certain number of places on the reef that have actually been monitored, and there's a large number of places that haven't. And we know that there is debate about the decline of coral on the reef. We know that the reef is being brought to the international attention, and questions have been asked about how we're monitoring it and how we're looking after it. And also right now, there's the big issue of bleaching on the reef. So we can look at bleaching, for example, in certain places, but how do we look at it across the whole reef? Just recently, we've had also a lot of interest in crown of thorns starfish. So COTS, crown of thorns starfish, is it's like the zombie of the ocean. You know, they come up in millions, and they have millions. One crown of thorns starfish can have millions of babies, and they sort of climb the roof, the wall of the coral, and then they come over onto the shelf of the coral, and they just eat their way through the coral. So they're just zombies of the sea. And now, how do we locate those? Well, the Centre of Excellence here in Robotics has built the COTSbot, and you may have heard of this. It's a great invention doing lots of great things. Our part in that is they can build it, but where do they send it? And so we're working with them then into going, okay, how can we use our statistical modelling to be able to predict where those COTSbots should go? And what can we do with the information when we get it? So that will be the reef. So I'll just show you a quick video of what we're doing in this development of this reef atlas. Thank you.
The Great Barrier Reef is an international treasure, and Australia is charged with its management. We know that the health of the reef is dynamic. It's affected by extreme weather events, fishing, land use and climate change impacts, and increases in pest species such as the crown of thorns starfish. At present, state and federal organizations are actively collecting data used to study environmental and ecological processes in order to make better management decisions. However, the Great Barrier Reef is roughly the size of Italy, and so we're only able to monitor a small proportion of the area. In addition, data such as biological surveys are expensive and time-consuming to collect. The goal of the Eyes on the Reef project is to add value to the digital reef using existing data, new technology, and statistical models so that we can make better management decisions and ensure the long-term sustainability of the Great Barrier Reef. We will achieve this goal by inviting divers and dive operators to submit their underwater photos and videos, which QUT researchers can use to create immersive environments. This will allow us to bring the virtual environment to the experts so that we can elicit information about the health of the reef in a more cost-effective manner.
Okay, so the aim of this project is that we already have a digital map of the reef, and the map has all the data that we know about the reef. And what we want to do then is to fill in the gaps and also to utilise citizen science.
We try to get people to tell us about what they know about reefs. So typically when we do that sort of thing, we put people in a fairly sterile room and we ask them questions about what it is that they think is going on in a particular situation. But by being able to take 360-degree video and putting people in a virtual environment, we can start to get much better information out of people.
So he brings the reef to people. So that's cool because it allows us to basically immerse people into the reef. So 3D will give you that experience. If you are immersed into the reef visually and as an experience, you see dimensions, you see things you wouldn't otherwise see. That's great for the science, but it's also great for education and for outreach.
So this project then on the reef and using citizen science to help us monitor the project, to monitor the reef, is really a combination then of collaboration of many people around the university. And these people have been brought together, a lot of it because of the institutes that we have. So the Institute for Future Environments, for example, creating that collaborative opportunity for us to bring together the people who do the different kinds of environmental science, the hotspots, and the statistical and mathematical modelling. So, and I must say for the hotspots then, I think this was the brainchild of Arun when Arun first started talking about this a number of years ago, so thank you. So the second project I wanted to talk about was in the sustainable environments area, was in Jaguar hunting. Now, the thing about Jaguar hunting is I'm going to switch from big data to little data or almost no data. So now we're in the world of conservation. And for conservation of rare and threatened species, a really important issue in Australia and across the world, we have hardly any information about these species because they're rare. So it's difficult to see them. It's difficult to collect information about them. So the question is then, where do we get our information? And so we've taken the lead from our Barrier Reef project to say, maybe we can use information from citizens. So what kind of information would we have here? Well, we don't have much observed data, but we have a wealth of information from the local people who live in the area and also from experts of those particular species around the world. So this project then is about jaguar hunting. So last year in November, after about 6 months of preparation, and again a great team brought together from mathematical sciences and across the Institute for Future Environments, we went to the Amazon in Peru. And the aim of the game here was to create, or what we are doing here, is to create a jaguar corridor across Peru. So this would be connecting reserves of Amazonian jungle so that the jaguars can move safely between those different conservation areas. Now, it was a conversation with a person that I met over dinner one evening in Sydney, so never have that second glass of wine where you find yourself going in one direction and then going completely another direction. But who said, she's passionate about jaguars conservation and has this foundation, the Lupuna Foundation. Lupunas are the large majestic trees, the master trees of the Amazonian jungle. Luz is love, so it's Lupuna Luz, the foundation. And so she said, we want to do this. We don't know much about the evidence base for creating this jaguar corridor. Where would these jaguars be? How many are there? Which tracts of land should we buy? And I said, we can do something about that. We do stats. And the second glass of wine said, look, we've got all this immersive environment stuff that we've been playing around with. Wouldn't it be cool to see if we could use that to help with this project? So our aim was to be able to support Lupuna Luz in building the evidence base for this, and I had to come back and promise that this was about work. So the evidence base then was to identify prime jaguar habitat and then to be able to estimate jaguar population numbers, their spatial distributions, and trends in jaguar numbers over time. So we needed to collate information and develop statistical models about key threats and impacts, because it's not just how many there are, but there's lots of other factors that go into conservation of the jaguars. So away we went. We tried to get maps for the areas we went to, so we looked at Google Maps and they were just green with little blue lines through them, and there was and we went, okay, let's see how we go here. So we went to 2 areas. The southernmost area there in the middle of Peru is Imiria, and the northern area is Pacaya Samiria. And so Imiria is an area of the Amazon which took us about 12 hours to get there by a boat up a little river, and to this beautiful lake. It's a magnificent, pristine lake with little villages dotted around it, the Shipibo people, the local people. And so this is where we conducted the first 2 weeks of the study. Pacaya Samiria is the northern reserve that we went to, and this was we spent 2 weeks going up a river in a little pecky like canoe, and so this was prime Amazon jungle, and then there were guards who guarded the conservation area. So we were able to interview them and talk to them. So the information sources for this, for data, it was hard. We didn't know of any public data there. So we had a big no for that. So in terms of big data, this wasn't. But in terms of the data that we did have, we had a lot of local information. We had it from our Indigenous people, the Shipibo people, and from our experts around the world. So for the local knowledge, we had a great survey set up. You know, we've done all of this before. How many times have we done a survey? We can write a survey. We could ask the locals, how likely is a jaguar to be here, and tell us how certain you are about it and what characteristics. Not a chance. And we got there, and all they wanted to do was tell us their stories, their jaguar stories. So we said, okay, tell us your stories. I saw a giant anteater on its back with its claws in the air and the jaguars circling it. Where did you see that? We showed them a map. They'd never seen a map before. Okay, so we showed how to work out a map. People got it, and we could put stars on a map. So this is Aaron Peterson, who went on the trip, and June Kim as well, and Kevin Burridge, so they were the team that went from here, putting stars on a map of where we'd seen jaguars, how many, and the story around the encounter. So then we translated this to Google Earth, and we're able to then use this for our spatial models. The other information we got was to ask them where would jaguars live. So different kinds of habitat and the characteristics of that habitat, that then if we have that information, we can use that to predict other places where jaguars might live. So we also had camera traps. So these are our camera traps that we took out here. For those of you that haven't seen a camera trap, and I hadn't until this time. So here's our camera trap. You open it up, you set it in here, you close it, you put it on a tree somewhere, and then you go back the next morning, and ta-da, you've got a jaguar. Not quite. And the biggest thing about why we didn't have a jaguar was because there were half a dozen of us traipsing through the jungle, trying with the guide to set one of these up. So of course there's this big sort of swathe of people, smell and stuff going on for the area. So eventually the guides who were with us, the Shipibo people, said, look, this is a bit silly. Why don't you just show us how to use this, and we'll go off and put it quietly somewhere. And then we managed to get some shots, not of jaguars, but lots of other cool things. So this is, we also wanted to ask the experts around the world. And how do we do that? Well, instead of bringing the experts to the Amazon, which of course is really difficult, how can we take the Amazon to the experts? And so this is where, just like you saw in the Barrier Reef example, we're using 360-degree films and immersive environments. So we can then take photo or film of areas, create this immersive environment, and then show that to our experts and ask them about the characteristics of the environment that are good for jaguars and how likely jaguars are in different locations. Because if you tell me enough information at enough places, enough sites, about how likely is a jaguar here and here and here and here, and I know the characteristics of those sites, then I can build a statistical model that will then be able to collect that information and be able to predict at other sites that we haven't been to. And that's the whole idea. So the kind of equipment that we took was, I'll show you in a minute. I just want to talk about these virtual environments. We practiced first with rock wallabies here in Australia. And rock wallabies live in inaccessible environments. And so what we did was we built computer-generated like game-like environments. So my son at the time playing lots of computer games, and my daughters as well. And so we said, well, let's make a game. So we put people into this computer game. So this is Ross Brown. This is his fault that we were doing this. And so we built these computer environments, computer-generated environments. We tested whether people would do better using these environments compared to just maps. And that was fine, except people found the computer-generated environments difficult. mainly because you have to get the environment right. If people are looking for rock wallabies, surprisingly, they want to know about the rocks. And so rocks have to look real in a computer-generated environment. So we said, okay, how do we do better than that? Let's use drones. So we're practicing now with drones and koalas. So we've got thermal imaging of koalas, and we're actually now using detector dogs for koalas as well. So we've got koala scat detector dogs. And for our Amazon project, we found that there is a Jaguar scat detector dog as well in Brazil. So we're going to borrow that and practice with that as well. So what we said instead of these computer-generated environments, let's use photos because they're the real thing. So then this is where we came to our new reality. So we had GoPros, we had 360-degree cameras. So this is the case of one of those. So you can imagine 6 GoPros in here on a stand, and then you stitch the film together. So we've got some of the stitched film as well, and I'll get somebody to show me. I can show you how this looks. This is through the Oculus Rift here, and this just connects to your phone here. And so on the phone, you can get the phone up. I'll send this around in a minute. We can then insert this into the here. You put this up to your face like this, and you'll be able to see the Amazon. Now, I'll send this around. I'll walk it around. But when you go into it, you'll be able to see different scenes that you can go into. You just stare at the scene, and it will open up into one of the locations that we went to. And you can look up, down, and around. And then if you look down, you'll see a cross. And then you go back to the main menu again. Okay, and the main menu is this animated Jaguar, and it jumps if you look at it. Okay, we're getting sort of starting to use augmented reality, which is this combination of animation and reality. Okay, so this is we can send this around if any of you would like to have a look. So that's that. We also had the camera traps. And this was the other 360-degree camera that I was allowed to use, which is this little one here. And you can see why I was allowed to use it because it's much better than that one. And so, but you can see how it's got eyes on both sides there, lenses on both sides. So this then connects to your phone. And so when you click this, it's just like a remote, take a photo and it gets transferred to your phone, and then you can use your phone for the 360-degree film there. Okay, so these are the kinds of cameras that we took with us. So thanks also to IFE for providing some funding for the cameras. So here we are in the jungle using the 360-degree films. These were the kinds of places that we went to, different scenes. And with the locals also enjoyed using the 3D stuff. So preferred to actually look at the pictures we were taking rather than look at where we were going. So it was a bit of a problem. So this is the 360-degree films, and so we stitched them together. And I'll show you one of the films here. So this is we have a website, viz with an S, so viz.stats.technology. If any of you are interested, you can go to the site and see our ebook and also the 360-degree film here. So this is... This song here is one of the last songs of the Shipibo people. They danced for us and sang for us the first time. They'd done it for years, and we're hoping to record this as well. So, do I do that? Can I do that? Oh, you can do it there. Just sort of wriggle it around a bit. You can make it go up and down too. They're howler monkeys that you can hear. Thank you, Lisa. And it can go on if you're interested. Thank you. So we also saw a lot of degraded areas, and so there's a real urgency in doing this project because about 80% of the, 20% of the jungle has disappeared in the last 5 years. So there's a real need to be doing this right now if we're going to save jungle and save the jaguars. This is us trying to find, we found a jaguar footprint, which we're all very excited about. And we also found information, some information with the Ministry for Environment has become very excited about this project. We have the Reserve Guard records and some long-term infrared cameras. And what about the maths and stats in this? So where does that fit in? Well, we're creating spatial models of jaguar encounters. We're creating models of jaguar movements, networks models for key factors and impacts, and Bayesian models where we combine the different data sources. So here's an example of a spatial model where we'll be able to talk about like where's the likelihood of encounters. Here's an example of a population dynamics model where we can say how many jaguars we expect there to be, and also what's the probability of the jaguar population crashing with different information about hunting, habitat loss, and so on. We can also look at the key factors, and you can see in here that there's a lot of factors involving protection and human interaction, which are big issues in jaguar conservation. So it's not just about environment. So for Lupinalus, this has meant a new project to estimate abundance and a large project that will be funded for purchase of the corridor land. For us, it represents a new way to combine new technology and maths and stats. And for the world then, we have an input into, not just for jaguars, but for all threatened species for the Global Climate Change conference that was held in Paris last year. So final question, did we see a jaguar? Well, we saw lots of other things. We saw piranhas, we fished for them and ate them. We saw capybaras, these are 30-kilogram guinea pigs, so any of you who have those little things in your backyard, these are the 30-kilo versions of those. We saw prehistoric fish. We saw amazing birds and anacondas and all sorts of things, all sorts of animals. No jaguars. We saw a footprint. We saw some pictures on beer bottles. And we had to go to the zoo to see the jaguars. But there's always next time. And next time, hopefully, will be later this year when we go with, and we're looking to be part of a BBC series that's looking at big cats, and so they may come with us to there. So it's a way of bringing together maths and stats with our new technology to solve what we hope are real problems in health and environment. And this is only able to be done through the big team of people that we have working on this project. I just get to talk about it. We all get to do the work on it. And importantly, it's not just the researchers, but it's also all of you as well. You know, the people that, the office professionals, the people that make all of this happen. So thanks to you.